This baby isn't mine. Those were the words that shattered her entire world. In a quiet hospital room, just moments after becoming a mother, Emily's husband walked away, not because she betrayed him, but because she chose to love a child no one else wanted. A tiny baby girl, abandoned at birth, left with no name, no family, no future. But Emily made a choice that would cost her everything. Her marriage, her home, her reputation. He gave her an ultimatum, me or that baby. And without hesitation, she chose a child. What happened next will break your heart, and then slowly rebuild it. Because while she struggled alone, fighting judgment, poverty, and loneliness, the man who left her was living his perfect life. Or so he thought. Years passed. The baby grew into a beautiful, kind-hearted little girl. A girl who knew nothing but love. Because one woman refused to give up on her. But life has a strange way of balancing things. The same man who once walked away lost everything. His job, his status, his so-called friends. And one rainy evening, broken and alone, he came back to the woman he abandoned, back to the child he rejected. But this time, everything was different, because the woman he left behind was no longer the same. She was stronger, wiser, unbreakable. And the little girl, she became the reason the world started to see the truth. So what happens when regret meets reality? When a man who chose pride faces a life he could have had, will she forgive him? Or will karma deliver a lesson he'll never forget? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about loss. It's a story about love, courage, and a choice that changed everything. And trust me, the ending, you won't see it coming. Welcome to Midnight Stories, where emotions run deep, secrets unfold, and every story leaves a mark on your heart. If you love powerful, life-changing stories filled with drama, love, and unexpected twists, you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and let the story begin. The hospital room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. The soft beeping of the heart monitor, the faint hum of machines, and the quiet footsteps of nurses outside were the only sounds left after his words echoed through the room. This isn't my child. Emily froze. Her fingers tightened instinctively around the tiny bundle in her arms. The baby shifted slightly, letting out a soft cry, as if sensing the sudden tension in the air. Emily's heart pounded violently in her chest, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice fragile, almost breaking. "What are you saying?" Daniel stood near the door, his face pale but his eyes filled with anger and disbelief. He ran his hand through his hair, pacing once before stopping again, staring at the baby like she was something unfamiliar, something wrong. "Don't do this," he said sharply. "Don't pretend like everything is normal. Look at her, Emily. Just look." Emily did look. She looked at the tiny nose, the delicate fingers wrapped gently around her own, the peaceful innocence on the baby's face. And all she felt was love, pure, overwhelming love. "I am looking at her," Emily said, her voice growing steadier despite the tears forming in her eyes. "She's perfect." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Perfect? Emily, this child doesn't even look like us." There it was, the truth he refused to accept. Emily swallowed hard, her throat dry. She had known this moment might come, but she hadn't imagined it would be like this. "I was going to tell you," she said softly. I didn't know how." Daniel's expression darkened instantly. "Tell me what?" Emily took a deep breath, gathering what little strength she had left. "I adopted her." The words hung in the air like a ticking bomb. Daniel blinked, as if he hadn't heard her correctly. "You what?" "I adopted her, Daniel," Emily repeated, her voice trembling but determined. "She was abandoned. No family, no one to take care of her. I couldn't just leave her there. I couldn't walk away." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then his anger exploded. "You adopted a baby without even talking to me first," he shouted, his voice echoing off the hospital walls. "Are you out of your mind?" Emily flinched, instinctively pulling the baby closer to protect her. "I tried to talk to you," she said quickly. "You were always busy, always distracted. And when I brought it up before, You didn't take me seriously. Because I didn't think you would actually do something this insane. Daniel snapped. The baby began to cry louder now, disturbed by the raised voices. Emily gently rocked her, whispering softly, trying to calm her down. It's okay, my love, she murmured. Daniel stared at them, his jaw tightening. Do you even realize what you've done? He said, lowering his voice but not his anger. You've ruined everything. Our life, our future, everything we planned. Emily shook her head, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. No, Daniel, I didn't ruin anything. I saved a life. That's not your responsibility, he fired back. There are systems for that, organizations. It's not your job to bring home someone else's child. She's not someone else's child anymore, Emily said, her voice suddenly rising with emotion. She's mine. Daniel's eyes narrowed. No, Emily, she's not. Those words hit harder than anything else. Emily felt something inside her crack, but she refused to break. She is mine, she repeated firmly. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And that matters more. Daniel shook his head in disbelief, almost laughing again. But there was no humor in it this time, only frustration and cold judgment. You didn't just adopt a baby, he said slowly. You adopted a black baby. Do you have any idea what people are going to say? What my family is going to think? What this will do to my reputation? Emily stared at him, stunned. Reputation? She whispered. That's what you're worried about right now? Yes. Daniel snapped. Because it matters. Society matters. The first night alone was the hardest. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the soft glow of a dim lamp lighting the small apartment she had moved into just days after leaving the hospital. The silence felt different now, heavier, emptier. There was no Daniel, no familiar footsteps, no shared conversations. Only her and the baby, Maya, wrapped in a pale pink blanket. The little girl slept peacefully in a small crib beside the bed. Her tiny chest rose and fell gently, completely unaware of the storm she had entered. Emily stared at her for a long time. It's just us now, she whispered softly, her voice filled with both fear and determination. She didn't cry that night, not because she wasn't hurting, but because she didn't have time to. Responsibility had replaced heartbreak. Every second mattered now, and so began her new life. The days quickly turned into a blur of exhaustion. Sleepless nights, constant feeding, diaper changes, and endless crying. It was overwhelming. There were moments when Emily felt like she might break. Moments when she sat on the floor holding Maya, tears silently streaming down her face. But every time Maya looked at her, really looked at her, with those wide, trusting eyes, Emily found strength she didn't know she had. You need me, she would whisper, and I'm here. Money, however, became a serious problem. With Daniel gone, so was the financial stability she had once relied on. Bills began piling up, rent, utilities, baby supplies. Formula wasn't cheap. Neither were doctor visits. Emily returned to work sooner than she was ready. Dropping Maya off at a small daycare each morning felt like tearing her heart in two. The first time she walked away, Maya cried so hard that Emily had to stop herself from turning back. I'll be back, she promised, even though her voice shook. I always will. At work, she struggled to focus. Her mind constantly wandered back to her daughter. Was she okay? Was she crying? Did she feel alone? But Emily pushed through, because she had no other choice. The judgment from others came quietly at first, then louder. Neighbors whispered when she walked by. Is that her baby? It doesn't even look like her. I heard her husband left. Emily heard it all. Every whisper, every stare, every assumption. At the grocery store, people looked twice, some with curiosity, others with clear disapproval. One woman even had the audacity to ask directly, "Where did you get her from?" Emily forced a polite smile. From where all children come from, a place that needed love. But inside it hurt, more than she ever admitted. Even her own family struggled to accept her decision. One evening, Emily visited her parents, hoping for some comfort, some support. Instead, she was met with silence. Her mother stared at Maya for a long moment before sighing heavily. "Emily, "You've made your life very difficult," she said. Emily's grip tightened around Maya. "She's not a difficulty, Mom. She's my daughter." "But at what cost?" her mother replied. "Your marriage is over. Your future is uncertain. And for what? A child that isn't even yours." Those words cut deep. Emily stood up slowly, her eyes filled with quiet pain. "She is mine," she said firmly. "And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't understand love the way I thought you did." She left that night with tears in her eyes, but her head held high. Despite everything, Maya became her light. As months passed, the sleepless nights became routines. The crying turned into giggles. The small apartment slowly filled with warmth. Maya's first smile changed everything. Emily had been having a particularly hard day. She was exhausted, stressed, and overwhelmed. Nothing seemed to go right. And then Maya smiled, a small, innocent, heart-melting smile. Emily froze for a second, then laughed through her tears. "Oh, there it is," she whispered. "That's what I've been waiting for." From that moment on, every struggle felt a little lighter. Years began to pass. Maya grew into a bright, joyful little girl. Her laughter filled every corner of their home. She loved drawing, dancing, and asking endless questions about the world. "Mommy, why is the sky blue? Mommy, where do stars go in the morning? Mommy, why don't I look like you?" That question came one quiet afternoon. Emily paused. Maya stood in front of the mirror, comparing their reflections. Her small voice carried innocence, not confusion, not sadness, just curiosity. Emily walked over and knelt beside her, gently placing her hands on Maya's shoulders. "You don't look like me," she said softly, "because you're wonderfully unique." Maya looked up at her. "But are you still my mommy?" Emily's heart melted instantly. She pulled Maya into a tight hug. "I'm your mommy because I chose you," she whispered. "Out of everyone in the world, I chose you, and I will choose you again every single day." Maya smiled, wrapping her tiny arms around Emily. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you more," Emily replied. Meanwhile, far away from their small but loving world, Daniel was living a very different life. At first, everything seemed perfect. He focused on his career, climbing higher in his company. He attended high-profile events, surrounded himself with influential people, and built the image he always cared about. On the outside, he had everything: success, money, status. But inside, there was a growing emptiness he couldn't ignore. Late at night, when the noise faded and he was left alone with his thoughts, memories began to surface. A hospital room, a crying baby, Emily's voice saying, "I choose her." He would shake his head, trying to push it away. It was the right decision, he would tell himself. But the silence, 5 years can change everything. For Emily, those years were filled with struggle, growth, and a kind of quiet strength she never imagined she would have. For Daniel, they were filled with success until everything began to fall apart. At first, his life had gone exactly the way he wanted. After leaving Emily, Daniel threw himself completely into his career. Long hours, endless meetings, networking events. He did it all, and it paid off. Promotions came quickly. His income doubled, then tripled. He moved into a luxury apartment in the heart of the city, drove an expensive car, and surrounded himself with people who admired his success. On the surface, he had built the perfect life. But perfection has a way of hiding cracks. At night, when the city lights dimmed and the noise faded, Daniel would sit alone in his modern, spotless apartment. No laughter, no warmth, just silence. Sometimes, without warning, a memory would slip in. A hospital room, a tiny baby crying, Emily's tear-filled eyes. "I choose her." Daniel would immediately stand up, grab his phone, turn on the TV, anything to distract himself. "It doesn't matter," he would mutter. "It's in the past." But no matter how much he tried, the feeling never truly went away. Then one day, everything changed. It started with a rumor at work. "Did you hear about the investigation?" Something about financial mismanagement. At the top level, Daniel didn't pay much attention at first. Rumors were common in big companies. But this time, it wasn't just talk. Within weeks, the company was hit with a massive scandal. News outlets picked up the story. Investors panicked. Executives began stepping down or being forced out. Daniel wasn't directly involved, but that didn't matter. When the company collapsed, it took everything with it, including his job. The email came on a cold Monday morning. Due to restructuring and financial crisis, your position has been terminated effective immediately. Just like that. No warning. No second chances. Daniel stared at the screen in disbelief. This can't be happening, he whispered. But it was. The fall was fast. Without his high-paying job, Daniel struggled to keep up with his expensive lifestyle. The rent on his luxury apartment became impossible to manage. Bills piled up quickly. The same friends who once invited him to exclusive parties stopped calling. Let's catch up sometime, they would say. But sometime never came. Daniel began to realize something painful. They weren't his friends. They were just people who liked what he had. And now he had nothing. Weeks turned into months. Daniel moved out his apartment and into a much smaller, modest place. His car was repossessed. His savings slowly drained as he searched for work. But the job market was harsh, and his previous company's scandal followed him like a shadow. Rejections became routine. We regret to inform you, unfortunately, we've chosen another candidate. Each email felt like another door slamming shut. One evening, exhausted and defeated, Daniel sat alone in his dimly lit apartment. Rain tapped softly against the window, creating a quiet, almost haunting rhythm. He hadn't eaten all day. His phone was silent. For the first time in years, he had nothing to distract him, and that's when the past came back. Stronger than ever, he closed his eyes, and there it was again. Emily, holding that baby, choosing love over him. Daniel let out a shaky breath, his chest tightening. "What have I done?" he whispered. For the first time, he didn't push the thought away. He let it stay, and with it came something unfamiliar, guilt. Meanwhile, across town, Emily's life had taken a completely different direction. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Her struggles had slowly turned into strength. After years of working tirelessly, saving every penny, and pushing through every obstacle, Emily finally took a leap of faith. She opened a small child care center. It wasn't fancy, just a simple, warm space filled with bright colors, tiny chairs, and walls covered in children's drawings. But what it lacked in luxury, it made up for in heart. Emily named it Little Lights, because that's what she believed every child was, a light in the world, no matter where they came from. At first, business was slow, but word spread quickly. Parents noticed how patient she was, how genuinely she cared. She didn't just watch children. She nurtured them, listened to them, understood them. Soon, the center was full. Laughter echoed through the rooms. Tiny footsteps ran across the floors. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt stable, proud, happy. Maya had grown beautifully. Now 5 years old, she was full of energy, kindness, and curiosity. She loved helping her mom at the child care center, handing out toys, comforting younger kids, and sometimes even reading stories in her own imaginative way. "Mommy, look, I'm helping," she would say proudly. Emily would smile every time. "You're the best helper in the world." One afternoon, as they cleaned up after a long day, Maya looked up at her mother. "Mommy?" "Yes, sweetheart. Why do you help everyone so much?" Emily paused for a moment, thinking, then she knelt down beside her. "Because once someone needed help," she said gently, "and I couldn't turn away." Maya smiled. "I'm glad you didn't," she said, hugging her tightly. Emily closed her eyes for a second, holding her close. Neither of them knew just how much that simple moment meant. That same evening, as Emily locked the door of the child care center, something caught her attention. Across the street, standing under a flickering streetlight, was a man. At first, she didn't recognize him. His clothes were worn, his posture slightly hunched. His face looked older, tired, almost broken. But then he stepped forward, and her breath caught. It was Daniel. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. 5 years of memories rushed back in an instant. The hospital, the choice, the goodbye. Their eyes met. Daniel hesitated. as if unsure whether to move closer or walk away. Emily stood still, her expression calm, but her heart quietly racing. Finally, Daniel took a slow step forward, then another, until he was standing just a few feet away from her. The distance between them felt small, but the history between them felt endless. "Emily," he said softly, his voice no longer filled with pride, but with something else, something heavier, something real. And in that moment, karma had finally brought him back to the place he once walked away from. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between Emily and Daniel felt heavy, filled with everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. 5 years of silence stood between them, louder than any words. Daniel looked at her carefully. She was different, not weaker like he had once imagined she would be, but stronger. There was a calmness in her eyes, a quiet confidence that came from surviving storms he could barely face now. "Emily," he said again, his voice softer this time, almost uncertain. Emily didn't step forward. She didn't step back either. She simply stood there, steady and composed. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked calmly. No anger, no bitterness, just distance. Daniel swallowed hard. This wasn't the emotional, broken woman he had left behind. This was someone who had rebuilt herself without him. I don't even know where to start," he admitted. "Start with the truth," Emily replied. Daniel let out a slow breath, running a hand over his face. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't hiding behind confidence or pride. He was just honest. "I was wrong," he said. The words came out quietly, but they carried weight. "I was selfish. I was arrogant. I cared more about what people would think than what was right." Emily listened, her expression unreadable. Daniel continued, his voice shaking slightly. "That day in the hospital, I didn't see a child who needed love. I saw a problem. I saw something that didn't fit into my perfect image of life." He paused, his eyes lowering. "And because of that, I lost everything that actually mattered." Emily's gaze softened slightly, but only for a moment. "Not everything," she said. "You chose to walk away." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right. I did." There was no defense, no excuse, just acceptance. "I thought success would make me happy," he continued. "Money, status, respect. I chased all of it. And for a while, I thought I had it all." He let out a bitter, quiet laugh. "But when it all disappeared, I realized something." Emily crossed her arms gently. "What?" "I was empty," he said. "Completely empty." The honesty in his voice was undeniable now. "No matter how much I had, it was never enough, because I walked away from the only thing that was real." Silence followed again. This time, it felt different. Less tense, more reflective. Just then, the door behind Emily opened slightly. "Mom!" Maya stepped outside, her small voice breaking the moment. She held a tiny backpack in her hands, her curious eyes looking between Emily and the unfamiliar man standing nearby. Emily turned instantly, her expression softening into a warm smile. "Yes, sweetheart." "Who is this?" Maya asked, stepping closer to her mother. Emily placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder, pulling her slightly closer in a protective, loving gesture. She looked at Daniel for a brief second, then back at Maya. "This," she said carefully, "is someone who was once part of my life." Maya tilted her head slightly, studying Daniel with innocent curiosity. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment, something inside him broke. She wasn't a problem. She wasn't something to be ashamed of. She was the child, a beautiful, kind, bright child, and he had rejected her without even giving her a chance. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. She's beautiful. Maya smiled politely, not fully understanding the emotion behind his words. Thank you, she said softly, hiding slightly behind Emily. Emily gently rubbed her back. Daniel took a step back, as if realizing he didn't belong in that moment. I don't expect anything, he said quickly. I don't expect forgiveness or a second chance. Emily said nothing. I needed to say I'm sorry, he continued. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserve to hear it. He looked at Maya again, then back at Emily. You did something I couldn't, he said. You chose love when it was difficult, when it cost you everything. Emily's grip on Maya tightened slightly, and you built something beautiful from it. For the first time, there was genuine respect in his eyes. Not judgment, not pride, respect. Emily took a deep breath. She had imagined this moment before, what she would say if she ever saw him again. But now that it was here, the words felt different. Apologies don't change the past, she said calmly. Daniel nodded. I know. But they can change you, she continued, if you actually learn from them. Daniel looked at her, listening carefully. You didn't just leave me, Emily said. You walked away from responsibility, from compassion, from something that mattered. Her voice wasn't harsh, but it was firm, and life showed you what that choice costs. Daniel lowered his head slightly. Yes, it did. Maya gently tugged at Emily's hand. Mommy, can we go home? She asked softly. Emily looked down at her, her expression instantly soft again. Of course, sweetheart. She looked back at Daniel one last time. I hope you find peace, she said. Not out of anger, not out of pity, but out of closure. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes filled with quiet regret. I hope so, too. Emily turned and began walking away, holding Maya's hand. Maya skipped slightly beside her, already talking about something small and joyful, something only a child could find important. Mommy, can we have ice cream tonight? Emily smiled. Maybe if you finish your dinner. Daniel stood there, watching them. As they walked further away, something became painfully clear. That could have been his life. That laughter, that warmth, that love. But he had chosen differently. The streetlight flickered above him as the night grew quieter. Daniel took a deep breath, looking down at the empty space beside him. For the first time, he didn't blame anyone else. Not Emily, not the world, just himself. And maybe that was the beginning of something new. Not redemption, not forgiveness, but understanding. Sometimes, the biggest mistakes in life come from fear, pride, and the need to please others. But true strength lies in choosing love, especially when it's difficult. Because in the end, karma doesn't just punish, it teaches.